Hello and welcome to the Wright Experience. I'm Dr. William T. Wright Jr., the founder and host of this show. I'm so excited to be back. We've taken about a 2-week hiatus, and certainly I'm glad to be back to providing you the most amazing content that I can find to bring you around the whole lens of leadership and helping us all to grow and get better. Now that I'm entering my second year in this podcast, I'm working diligently to continue to find the very, very best leaders and people that I can find so that we can learn more about how to do what we do every day better. This is episode number 48 of the Wright Experience tonight. My guest tonight is the author of a new book. She also travels all across the United States working with school districts to help improve instruction for all students. I first met her at a regional superintendent's meeting here in the northeastern part of North Carolina. My guest tonight is Ms. Venola Mason. Venola Mason is driven by the belief that every student deserves a high-quality education that can afford them many opportunities to lead and contribute to the world as they transition to adulthood. She is passionate about partnership with school districts across the country to create and implement practical solutions to increase student achievement and wellness. Venola began her career in education as a Teach for America Metro Atlanta Corps member in 2003. She taught for 5 years in Atlanta's public schools, leading her students to consistently make 1 to 3 years of academic growth across all content areas, closing the achievement gap. She also served as site manager for the New Teacher Project, where she managed the Atlanta Content Seminar Program, a professional development program for K-12 teachers. During her last year with TNTP, she served as a central site manager to support the state approval process and launched the Georgia Teaching Fellows Program, which is an alternative teacher certification program. In 2011, Venola served as the director of the Alternative Certification for Teach of America Metro Atlanta site. In this role, she created the Teacher Leadership Development Program, which is also another alternative certification program for Teach for America Corps members, and secured that program's designation as an accredited teacher commission. In that same year, she joined the International Center for Leadership and Education, where she works even now in a associate partner role. She's also recently published the book Teach Up, Empowering Teachers Through Relationships, Rigor, and Relevance. And she also continues to maintain her teacher and administrator credentials in the state of Georgia. At this time, I'd like to welcome my good friend, Miss Venola Mason. There
Good
she is.
evening.
How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing well. I'm doing well, and glad to have you on the show. Excited about this opportunity for my audience to get to know you and get to know about the amazing work that you're doing to help improve the student outcomes for students all across this country. So excited. Let's get right into the questions, if you don't mind.
All right.
So start out by telling us about the work that you do at the International Center for Leadership and Education and how that work impacts school districts and the educational community at large.
Yes. So at ICLE, I'm one of the associate partners. And what we do is partner with school districts to help them with their transformational change efforts. So some of the districts that we work with, they want to focus on increasing the level of rigor and relevance and relationships throughout their schools. They want to help increase the level of rigor in their instruction. So how can they create instructional tasks that will allow their students to think at high levels, problem solve, but then they're also able to solve tasks that help them to apply and use skills that they would use outside of the classroom in their everyday lives. And so we do some work around that. We also do transformational work around curriculum design. So many of the districts that we work with have a need to overhaul their curriculum. And so we'll help them to design a curriculum that's aligned to their state standards, make sure they have common formative assessments and performance tasks that's embedded in that curriculum. And then we also do a lot of work around data teams. So many times we find that districts don't have a solid system for collecting data from classroom assessments, bringing that data back to the table, looking at the findings, trying to figure out what strategies the teachers can change or modify in order to get a different result for some of their students. And so we help them with that type of work as well. So it's more of a comprehensive partnership. We come in, try to identify what are the most critical needs and priorities of the school district, and then help them to solve those problems.
Okay, so many of the districts, say in our area, kind of as a follow-up question, are we are hiring people to teach in our classrooms that may not be education majors. So they've got bachelor's degrees, maybe even masters, but they may not be education majors. So what about that work? What do you do to help those folks?
Right. So, like, we don't have any programs that particularly address those teachers. However,
Okay.
we address all of the teachers, right? So, those teachers
Okay.
are part of the bunch. And pretty much, because I went through an alternative certification program myself, and it's all
So
about
did
that
I.
continuous professional development. As long as
Right.
you wrap your arms around teachers and have as a leader, have a strong understanding of what they know and what they don't know, then you can help them to fill in those gaps so that if they are weak in the areas of, let's say, classroom management and culture, then you can provide them development opportunities in that area. If they are weaker in terms of planning, and designing instructional tasks, then you want to get them some help in that particular area. With this day and age and many districts still having hybrid opportunities for students, making sure those teachers have opportunities to understand how to use that technology to maximize their instructional time. So, those teachers are just like others, making sure that they have the tools and the development they need in order to be successful with their kids.
Okay. Very good. Very good. So tell us about this new book, Teach Up. What inspired you to write it, and what impact do you aspire it to have for readers?
Yeah, so this book, Teach Up, it really was a labor of love. And
Okay.
I think I started writing that book back in 11th grade when I was in high school.
Oh wow. Okay.
So, the concept came to me. I remember being an 11th grader, and I was in a gifted magnet program. And so all of the classes that I took, we went through like in cohorts. We all had the same English teachers, the same history teachers. We all kind of moved together. And I remember one particular year, I had a free space in my schedule. And so I was placed in one of the regular ed courses. And so when I got in that course and I was in that class, mind you, I'm a 16-year-old. And so I'm looking around, and it's very clear to me that the expectations for the students in that class were very different from the expectations of the students in my classes. And as a young
Mhm.
16-year-old, I could clearly see that, and I just, it wasn't right. It was not fair because these were my neighbors. Like, there was nothing different about me from these other students. And why was it that I was being challenged and we were reading, a lot of the American classics and writing essays? And these students, the highest expectation that was held for them was to sit quietly in their seats until the bell rung. And so
Ah,
when I talk about teach up, it's like, how can we empower our teachers to teach at the highest levels and to make sure that they understand exactly what that looks like? A lot of times folks want to tell teachers what they should be doing, but we don't really break it down and help teachers understand how they can do it. Our
uh-huh.
teachers have the best intentions and they do the best with what they have. So teach up is all about, how can we help teachers to understand the power that they have, the impact that they have on children's lives, and through their lesson planning, through the culture that they build in their classrooms, that they really are powering up our future.
All right, all right. I have begun reading it. I'm going to get through it, but it's amazing content. Amazing content. I highly recommend it.
And
Sure
it's
do.
very practical. So it's
It
something that a
is
teacher can pick up and read, and they can pull strategies and tips out of there that they could immediately use in their classroom.
absolutely, absolutely. So, Ms. Mason, school districts across the country, particularly those that are rural, like the one that I'm currently serving in, and underfunded, are having difficulty obtaining and retaining quality teachers. Tell me what you believe needs to be done to fix that.
You know what? Education is similar to just about any business, across the world and in this country. And it's like your people are your best salespeople. And so, in
Right.
order to recruit and retain those high quality folks, it starts with how we treat the ones that we have. If
Mhm.
our teachers are treated with high levels of respect, they're treated like professionals, they're listened to, so we understand what their needs are and we try our best to meet those needs, then they will talk to, the other people that they know in their networks and help to encourage them to come to our districts and to our schools. This is a problem that a teacher shortage, is happening nationally. And so districts will have to be creative in terms of incentive programs for new teachers, building bridges and making connections with these college prep programs and teacher prep programs to help build pipelines so that these new teachers are actually, coming, well, so that these new college graduates are coming into the profession. And then also that once they, decide to become educators, that then the districts are attractive places for them to be. But I will say that your current staff, they're always going to be the best people to be able to quote unquote sell what you have to offer to these new folks who are, considering coming into the field.
So, current staff getting out there actively recruiting and making sure that we as leaders um, take care of those that are in our employ. Make sure we create the best environment possible for them. Is what I hear you saying. That's good stuff. Thank you for that.
Mhm.
So the field of education, I have said a lot lately, is undergoing a significant shift, in my opinion, in many areas. That's at least about the best word I can find to describe it. So what do you believe will be essential things for leaders to do to ensure that children's needs are being met going forward?
So a couple of things. One thing is that, especially with the onset of COVID and many districts having to shift how they do business, right? And how we do school. Districts having to, create these hybrid models, these blended models that didn't exist before. Well, some parents and families have really gotten used to those options and their students are thriving, under
That's
those
right.
types of options. And so, I don't think that districts will be able to take away those options as we begin to, release mask mandates and we're lessening up these requirements from COVID. I think we'll still have to think about, how these changes impacted some of our students in a positive way and how districts can continue to be more flexible and not only with students, but also with the teachers. And I think that kind
Yeah.
of goes back to your previous question. The more flexible we can be with teaching models and modalities, that's going to be more attractive to the teachers who are coming into the profession.
Mhm, mhm. Yeah, absolutely. And I happen to have a nephew that I just learned, I think yesterday, day before. His parents sent something. He's an early college student in his county,
Hmm.
and number one in the class. And he's a true testament, as you said. I think he's a sophomore, so true testament of what children can do with remote learning, even with the proper supervision and guidance and encouragement and so forth from parents. So you're right. We do have virtual students who have thrived in this environment, and those options need to continue to be made available. Um, in person learning still is important for many of our children. But like you said, that flexibility is so key. So thank you for that.
Yes. And I mean, I definitely, like you, I'm a proponent of in person as well. Like, I feel like I would
Sure,
learn best
sure,
in person. I know
sure.
I have to have an open mind to know that everybody is not going to be the same. And some people, some students, like I have a nephew, he's 13 in middle school. He loves being online. And he's
Sure.
really thriving and coming into himself, having that option. So for him, like, I would hate to see that snatched away from him because he's doing so well. And I'm sure some teachers are really enjoying teaching in that way as well too.
Sure. So creating that flexibility moving forward sounds like you feel, and I agree that is going to be key for public school units moving forward for sure. So what kinds of things do you do to continue to grow as a leader, be they books that you read or professional development or even people that you might lean on? Talk to us about that.
Yes, so I am a continuous lifelong learner. And I think
Okay.
anybody in the business of education, if you don't get those words out of them, then something is wrong. So behind me, I have a huge shelf of books. I try to pull one of those and try to get through at least a whole book in a month or two. So right now, I'm
Mhm.
reading Lean In, with it being Women's History Month and all. And so, I'm
Okay.
finding that to be a really good read. I do a lot of professional development on social media, so on LinkedIn and Twitter, but a lot of current articles about things that are going on, across the country in education, in business, tidbits and nuggets that I can take back to the districts that I partner with, and definitely listening to this podcast, is always informational and helping me to get, stay, on the cutting edge of things. So, definitely have to continue reading, signing up for webinars, which there are a plethora of, just to make sure that you're staying current on what's going on and not drawing all of your experience from things that happened in the past, making sure that you're staying current on what is actually happening now. I think that's key.
All right. I appreciate the podcast plug too. That's all right. Thank you for that. But yes, all of those are critical and important, and we also have to continue to sharpen that mind around this work that we're doing. And being a leader, being in education in 2022 is very different than it's ever been. So thank
Yes,
you for
and
that.
think about it too. We often lead from positions where, like, we're leading people who are in different positions than from where we are now.
That's
And
right.
so it may be one or two, you may be 1 or 2 years far removed from that seat, or 10 or 20 years, or even 30 or 40 years. And so the more connected we can stay to the people who are actually doing the work in the buildings, I think that helps us to be stronger leaders.
Amen. Amen. Ms. Mason, where do you see, you've already talked a little bit about flexibility and the need for that, but where do you see public education headed in the next 5 years, let's say?
Right. I think that so a couple of things. First, I think that we really are going to have to make sure that we are paying attention to the social and emotional needs, not only of the children that we serve, but also the teachers and
Mhm.
principals who are in these buildings. Like you said before, I do a lot of work across the country. I'm in school districts, different ones on a weekly basis sometimes. And, people are tired, and people have experienced a lot of trauma. People have
Sure.
experienced a lot of loss, a loss of life. And so, everybody's carrying a heavy burden now. And so I think that for us to really maximize what we're able to get out of students and staff, that we're really going to have to pay attention to, their social emotional wellness, and make sure that's like an integrated part of our day, and versus something that we may check in on periodically. So
Mhm.
that's one thing. And then another thing, the types of skills that are needed in these jobs to come, are much different than what we have available now. So it's going to be important for us to really think beyond, what we're doing now, what's possible now, what's available now, because 5 years from now, our technology is going to be totally different. I mean, think about your phone and how fast those iPhones become outdated. As soon as you get one, 6 months later, there's new technology, and now that technology is outdated. And so they're constantly improving at a rapid rate. And so I think we have to figure out, how we develop those core skills like problem solving, critical thinking, researching and understanding what data is telling us, so that regardless of what those jobs look like for the future, our kids will have the basic skills they need to be ready for them.
Absolutely, and it's an ever changing demand on making sure we get education right, so that kids are as prepared as they can be. And right back to that flexibility, we've got to have flexibility in the way that we deliver instruction too, in my opinion. In terms of programs and what children take and all of that, which is right along the lines of what you're talking about now. So I'm going to throw an extra one in here. So let's say we have some people out here that are viewing us that are aspiring authors. What advice would you give them?
So something that my team did for me, I don't even know if I should be sharing this, but I'm going to give it to you.
Okay.
So once I had my table of contents written, then what they had me do was take all of the work that I've been doing. So, like, let's say I'm on this podcast, any webinars that I have been a part of or facilitated, any trainings that I have done or blogs that I have written, took all
Okay.
of that and, gotten it scripted and taken that content and placed it in the chapter where that it aligned to. By
Oh,
doing that, it showed me that I'm not starting from scratch with this work, that I've been writing it, over the course of my career. And then you can kind of go in and figure out what things you really want to keep, what things you may want to add, and what things you want to take away. But it's really helpful in the writing process because you're not just looking at a blank page. It's like most of you, you have these ideas, you've lived these experiences. These are best practices that have served you well in your career and have served others well. And so it's not about, creating something from scratch that's totally brand new, but it's about bringing together all of the things that have worked and then just adding some pieces on top of it. So I would say, if you're interested in writing a book, just think about all of the work that you've done, look through your files, listen to your videos, watch your videos, listen to your podcast, and you will be surprised how much of your book is already written.
okay. Okay. All right. All right. So that last part was aimed at me, wasn't it? To get me to write one. Okay. All right.
Yes, that's a
So I've
challenge.
noticed that sounds like it. It sure sounds like it. So you've already talked about, and we have talked about a little bit, that you do a lot of visiting schools and school districts. What do you believe are the characteristics of a good school?
Oh, that is a great question. I would start with culture and climate. When I walk
Okay.
into a school, you can just from the moment that you walk in, you can gain so much insight into the type of place that it is, and if it's a place where you would want your own child. And so,
Uh-huh.
right away, I pick up on, is this a loving environment? What types of things do they have posted around on the walls? Because that helps me to see what's important to them and the types of things that they celebrate. I listen to the noises in the hallways. Is it calm? Is it smooth? Is it loud? Because that's going to help me to get an understanding of how operations are at the school site. So definitely that culture and climate. I always look for strong relationships. So if I'm doing a walkthrough with some principals, then do the students, do they know who the principal is? Do they know who the superintendent is? Are they, is there light chatter to show that relationships are being built? All those make for a strong learning environment. So that's one of the things, just that culture and climate and the relationships is something that makes for a great school. And then also strong systems. When there are systems in place, at the school level and then also at the classroom level, things run smoothly. And so when things are smooth, then a teacher or a leader is better able to pinpoint any problem that a student may be having or that a staff member may be having because things are smooth and routines are in place. When things are in or are chaotic, it's hard to really see where people might be falling through the cracks or where people may be struggling. So some of the best schools, they have great culture and climate and they have great systems in place.
Outstanding, outstanding, and all of that is so much needed in all of our schools. And so, thank you for illuminating that for us. Is Ms. Mason, is there anything else that I've left off that you'd like to share with our audience at this time?
You have such great questions, but I
Thank
would
you.
say that, as school leaders, we have to make sure that we're thinking about all of our students. And so, there are many inequities in terms of curricular resources, within a district, in terms of facilities across the district, even in terms of staffing or discipline of students. And so I think it's so critical for leaders to really, look at all of the data that's at their fingertips to make sure that, resources, facilities, staffing, all of those things are equitable across the district so that parents and families don't feel like they have to go to certain schools in the district to get what they need, that they feel like they can go to any school in the district and they will be able to have the same access to that high quality education.
Outstanding, outstanding, and that's a message to us all that are leading, whether it's at the district level or at the individual school level. We want our schools to be so folks don't have to make choices about where they're sending their children. That all schools are excellent and at high quality level. So thank you for that. I appreciate that. Hold on with me for a minute, and we'll come right back and close out the show.
Okay.
I'm absolutely grateful for the opportunity to present these podcasts. As you can see, we continue to try to provide you with amazing content and great individuals that come and share and help us all to learn how to grow and get better. I'm so grateful for the amazing responses also that I receive from time to time from you about the work that we're doing. Please keep those coming. It certainly gives us an opportunity to reflect and continue to move forward to bring you this amazing content that we're trying to do. Also, if you're viewing us via Facebook Live or YouTube, please take the opportunity to like and comment, let us know how you're feeling about us. And also, those of you that view us viewing via YouTube, please don't forget to click that subscribe button. There is not a cost. I had someone ask me that one time. It is just simply a way of letting the company YouTube know that you appreciate our content. And it also gives you an opportunity to continue to receive that content and notifications of that content as it comes forward. We are committed to bringing you as many people as we can, and we try to do it at least once a week here on the podcast. So thank you for that. My guest next week is going to be Dr. Frank Morgan. Dr. Morgan is a retired South Carolina superintendent. Dr. Morgan also mentors current and aspiring superintendents, and he's also an educational editor who writes some amazing content for newspapers in the eastern part of the United States from time to time. And he does that through supporting and illuminating the work of education and educational leadership. That podcast is going to be held next Thursday, March 17th at 7 o'clock p.m. Ms. Mason, I want to thank you so very much for being a part of this podcast, and your insight and the words and the wisdom that you have shared with us has been absolutely amazing. And I am certainly continue to be pleased and amazed at the passion that you have for improving student outcomes. And that work is so critical, particularly in today's time where we're trying to bridge the gap, I'll say, between the mental challenges that we're facing, social emotional challenges that we're facing, as well as continuing to try to make sure that these students are prepared for educational society. So thank you for your contribution on this podcast, but also to the educational community at large.
Thank you. It's such a great experience. Thank you for having me. And I look forward to keep tuning in.
All right. And we look forward to having you back on the show at some point. Thank you. And to the Wright
Sounds
Experience
good.
audience, thank you for watching.